Let's start with Dabo Swinney and Clemson. The Clemson Tigers just getting demolished by Syracuse, 34-10. We knew Clemson had some issues, obviously, offensively, defensively a little bit, but mostly offensively. But Syracuse, with the top-rated pass offense in the country, comes in, throws up a lot of yards. Heck, Steve Angeli ends up getting injured that game, but they still go in there and pull off this huge, gigantic win. Clemson 1-3 for the first time ever under Dabo. What the heck is going on at Clemson? Hummer, this is a team, if I recall correctly, you thought could win the national championship this year.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm gonna eat that one. I am still flabbergasted thinking about Clemson. It's a situation that makes no sense on paper. I was texting with Blake Rockermeyer, former first-round draft pick, a CBS employee who handles a lot of our like scheme evaluation stuff and breakdowns of teams. Yesterday, his son plays at Miami, had a much better result for the Hurricanes yesterday than Clemson did. And I was just like, can you explain what the hell is wrong with this Clemson defensive front? And he was like, I have no idea. They're so talented. They should not be this bad. And that's the only thing I come out of this game thinking. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, this is a Clemson, like, we'll talk about both lines of scrimmage, but this is a Clemson defensive front that has multiple future draft picks, or at least they did going into the season. I don't know if that holds up to this point. And I think they're 107th in pressure rate created. Offensively, the offensive line, which I thought would be maybe a bit of an issue this year, ranks 123rd in pressure rate allowed. Yeah. So that's the first place I go to. But like, can't run the ball. Like, the secondary isn't stopping anybody. It feels like the run fits are horrible. This Clemson team keeps making mistakes, like bad mistakes, like hitting people late out of bounds and roughing the passers to extend drives. And I don't want to say it's like a comedy of errors, but it just feels like so many things at once it's going wrong for Clemson football. It's kind of unexplainable when you think of how much talent's on this roster.
Yeah, let's put it in context here. I don't think anybody's going to say on this show that Dabo Swinney's going to get fired or anything like that. He's done way too much at Clemson, and obviously they just won an ACC championship last year when a lot of people, including me, thought the program may not get there last season. But, you know, his buyout, we'll say it now, is $60 million at this moment. And John, you know, Clemson's not a program that's like hurting for cash. It's not a cash issue. They got a lot of cash. In fact, when we just talk about revenue sharing, they're sharing 85 to 86% of their entire budget there for the revenue share to the football program. NIL is a situation there at Clemson where they like to give the money and reward players who perform well. So sophomores, juniors, and seniors more so than incoming freshmen. And a lot of these guys who are struggling are the upperclassmen. They returned a lot of production from last season. I mean, Hummer hit on it. This is just completely baffling, but like, is there a common theme in all of this? Is it just Dabo? Is it the portal? Is reluctance with the portal? Like, can we define this? You're muted.
There we go.
I don't want to say anything. There you go.
I don't think it's a talent issue, to Chris's point. I think that you look up and down the talent, there is quite a bit of NFL talent. It's why so many people like them to compete for a playoff spot this year. So I think some of the, like, Dabo's not evolving, not adapting, like, it's easy to say that, but like, I don't think it's purely if he just got this piece out of the portal, everything would be better. Certainly they should have maybe been more aggressive about getting a running back and some offensive linemen. But to me, when you look up and down, when you can't really explain it, that's when it comes back to, feels like there's some effort issues out there. Watching them against Syracuse, it did not feel like they were the better coach team. I think Syracuse certainly looked better in a lot of ways there. So and I want to be careful here. I don't want to get aggregated for saying something, but like, I don't want to say like Dabo's lost the locker room or anything like that. But when you've been at a school for so long and you have a certain style of doing things, like when it starts to not go well, or guys starting to tune you out, or they're not maybe as invested as they've been in the past, there's just something that feels very off about this program right now. And I think the thing that's concerning, and I said this a week ago, is that I don't see a lot of obvious fixes. Like, it's not, again, purely a talent issue. They have gone out and spent a lot of money on a new defensive coordinator, Tom Allen. That hasn't worked out so far. They went out and got Garrett Riley a couple years ago, spent a lot of money doing that. Dabo is as defensive as ever. And so it doesn't seem like he's going to make major changes internally based on what he's saying publicly. So I think that's where we've written about it. Like, it feels like they're entering into kind of a purgatory type period where you're not going to get rid of him, but he's not really going to change and you're just going to get stuck. And that's why I think the Clemson fans that I was texting with yesterday, like, they're pretty frustrated right now.
I mean, this is exactly the type of situation that Nick Saban never wanted to get in.
Right.
And wanted to, I think that's why he left, because he knew that could potentially happen to him because of the new era and things changing, the attitude of the players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can I ask you all a quick question that I've thought a little bit about, given Dabo Swinney and Mike Gundy, who I know we're going to get to in a little bit? Like, and I've always wondered this in college football. How much do y'all think is owed a head coach who's done so much for a program to establish it when they start to slip at the end? It's the old Bobby Bowden question, I suppose, from like 20 years ago. And we've seen the situation happen numerous times in college football. I'm just curious how both of y'all think about that. Because, like, for Dabo, like, the slide isn't that significant until this year. He won an ACC championship last year. I think he's won 9+ games every year since 2011. Mm-hmm. But for somebody like Mike Gundy, like, who I know we're going to talk more about in a little bit, the slip is more precipitous. So I'm curious how the two of y'all think about that issue.
I think what's interesting about Dabo and other coaches, including Mike Gundy and even Bobby Bowden to a certain extent, is that they rationalize the slide because of what they've done in the past. So for the longest time, Dabo's like, we've won 10 games or more in this many seasons. And then you get down to 9. It's like, we've won 9 more games each season. Like, it's just, you keep moving the goalpost because you feel like you're allowed to do that because, hey, I won a championship here 10 years ago. Rarely do you see a coach in a position like Dabo Swinney or a Mike Gundy who has won in the past admit to failures in their future because they don't want to let go of all that. I think it's so rare these days, one, for coaches just to be outward and open about things, but especially the old school coaches who have been somewhere for a while and they are so intertwined and obsessed with their legacy. They are all obsessed with their legacy. Some are smart enough, like a Nick Saban, to step away when you're pretty much on top and before that slide starts to potentially happen. Not saying Saban would have slipped completely, but you saw the little chinks in the armor, right? Dabo and Mike Gundy are the perfect examples of guys who I don't think will ever let go voluntarily. They will have to be forced out either through a retirement or something like that. And I think the question for Dabo is not necessarily, should I step away this year, but how many more times can I just keep being combative whenever people ask me about very glaring, obvious weaknesses in myself as a coach and as a development of players and also in the recruiting realm?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Brandon's point earlier, I remember talking to someone who was, I think, on that last staff with Saban, who said that Saban specifically said he didn't want to pull Bobby Bowden. So he was very aware of that, of staying too long. And I think you could argue might have left. I mean, they were a play or two away from being in the national championship game. So he left at a high note. That's always what he said. It was like, I don't want to leave the program at a lower level. You know, I want to leave it in a good place. And, you know, you can see, we talked about Bama at another time about where it stands, but he left a lot of talent there at minimum. And so I think it's really hard. I can remember a similar situation like David Cutcliffe at Duke, like took over probably one of the worst programs in America. He has a couple down years and he gets forced out. And I think he was very hurt by that. He felt like he should have been given a little bit more grace. And so it's such a hard thing, to Brandon's point. Like, there's ego involved, there's legacy, I've given everything to this place, I deserve a little extra time. But it's tough. And, you know, you hope that people will gracefully leave. I mean, our great friend Dennis Dodd still had his fastball and he left. You know, we didn't have to like kick him out because he was, you know, spelling Nick Saban's name wrong in stories, right? Like, he knew, all right, I can leave when I'm still doing a good job. You hope that people do that, but unfortunately, a lot of them want to hang on, and it kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Like, I'm going to be thinking about how bad this Oklahoma State team is, and not necessarily the highlights of the Mike Gundy era.
There's not a lot of Jerry Seinfelds and Ted Lassos out there. You step away when they're on top.
Ted
All right,
Lasso's coming back, Brandon. Don't you worry. Like, that cat check cleared from Apple. Jason Sudeikis is back.
Yeah, it's coming back, but is it going to be good?
No.
All right. So
wow, y'all are just ruining my hope for a
no, because it's going to be anyway. The show's going to be stateside, and I it's better when he's a fish out of water. Anyway, all right. Billy Napier, Florida. Is he getting fired today? Or are we in mass hysteria? Our Richard Johnson, I'm sure all of us communicating with him. It seems like things are kind of quiet for now, but it seems the inevitable is still coming. Florida entering a bye week after losing to Miami, 26-7. The result's not surprising, right? In fact, they were in this game in the fourth quarter within a score, which isn't surprising again because Florida's defense has been phenomenal all season. They only allowed 3 offensive touchdowns going into that game. They got one of the better defenses in the SEC and also the country. But look at that right there. Fewest total yards in a game, 141. This offense has been struggling all year. We know that. Also, credit to Miami's defense. We've said on the show that they've got an incredible defense. You saw it in the Notre Dame game. Notre Dame's offense is explosive. Is it just a matter of time with Billy Napier, and why the holdup? Why are we not hearing Billy Napier has been fired at Florida on this Sunday morning?
I think I'll make 2 quick points here and I'll let Chris go. I think one, it's a little ironic that DJ Lagway and that offense probably saved Billy Napier a year ago and probably going to be what dooms him this year, especially with Billy not willing to give up the play calling duties. I think that was a mistake and is ultimately going to be probably what dooms him. I think the second point that I'll make is that I think at Florida, there are 2 things you got to think about. One, is there an interim coach, a viable interim coach on the coaching staff? I think people will tell you that is very much in question. They'll have to name someone, but there's not an obvious, this is the guy to step up. And
interim coach Steve Spurrier.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it. I don't know. Is Jim McElwain, does he need another job? Bring back all the old coaches.
You did it with Bob Stoops for a game. Bring in
Ed Ogeron, he's around. Let's get Ed O to interim for a couple days.
He's in Florida. He's living in Miami. He probably watched the game in person yesterday.
But the other piece of it is that, especially right now, guys can redshirt if they want to. And so I just think that it makes sense because it's a bye week. But if you say pull the plug on Billy Napier right now, and listen, we got burned a week ago talking about coaches possibly getting fired, and then they did a couple hours later. So I don't want to say anything definitively because something could happen in an hour. But it would seem to make sense to hold on another week or 2. You can maybe do it on the second bye later on in the season, just because if you fire Billy Napier today, does DJ Lagway say, I'm redshirting, I'm out of here? You start losing guys. And then it gets really, really ugly down the stretch. So there's some even just in-season reasons, I think, to hold on to Billy at this point.
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to bring up, John. I think athletic directors have to sort of toe a very fine line in this era of college football with the redshirt rule and the transfer window that triggers immediately when a coach is fired. A team gets 30 days to enter the portal at that point. And if you're Scott Strickland, you really have to take those 2 things into account. And I think this is a situation in which if you just talk to people around college football, even people around Florida, like they talk about the second bye week, which is only in like 3 more games for Florida. There's not a lot of opportunity for Billy Napier to save his job in that stretch, especially when you have to play Texas and Texas A&M in back-to-back weeks. So I think that redshirt rule and that 30-day window really looms over this situation for Florida. And that's why you might not see movement as soon as maybe Florida fans want to see it.
Hummer's dog is chiming in. What's the boy saying?
He's saying I did not mention the Bulldogs of Mississippi State in terms of those 3-game stretch with Florida. And he wants to point out that the Bulldogs, who I believe are 4-0 now, have an excellent chance to win that game.
They got some dogs. Hey, by the way, I heard that clip at the OU game because OU's defensive line calls themselves the Dog Pound. And some reporter in the background, when the player said, you got some dogs. And he was like, oh, yeah, from that song. I don't know who's a rap artist that does it. And Andy Staples like, they sampled it in a rap song. It's a old YouTube video of the Coastal Carolina coach. Just shows you how old we all get over time.
Hey, by the way, I think so when you're trying to tie all these hot seat situations together, and I'm not trying to make it a holistic conversation about all of them, I think one thing you find is an unwillingness to change. For Dabo Swinney and Mike Gundy, that's obvious, right? But with Billy Napier, I think criticism for those people who follow Florida closely is that he hasn't given up play calling duties, and the third down offense is a problem for Florida. That's been a problem for years for Billy Napier. I think he designs it really well, but when he gets to third down, some of those obvious passing situations, Florida can struggle. And you know what Florida went on Saturday against Miami on third down? They went 0 of 13. 0 of 13.
My gosh.
And I think that stat alone, 0 of 13, kind of signifies why Billy Napier's in the position he's in. Like, it's an unwillingness to change, even though people are telling you and advising you to do so.
And the amount of times they seem to only have 10 men on the field. I know it's something that infuriates Florida fans. And then he just didn't have an answer for it again after the game. You're like, come on, Billy. Come on.
This happens like every 3 games.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'm not exaggerating. Like,
Yeah.
we need to go out and average that. I guarantee you the average is about once every 3 games, there's a substitution penalty of some sort. Too many men on the field or not enough men on the field. Usually it's special teams or the offense, rarely the defense. I don't know. Billy Napier is 20-22 overall. There at Florida. It's the 4th worst record among Florida head coaches with at least 20 games under the belt. He's 4-16 against AP ranked teams.